So we've reached that point. We've reached the end of the road, at least when it comes to TikTok and the ban that's going to roll into effect on January 20th. Now, there was a reason why this was going to happen on that particular date, or at least the day before the inauguration. There's a reason why it was set for the 19th. You know why. It was a transfer of power in one way or another, whether it came out on one side of the equation or the other. It was going to stop right then and there, whether or not we had a continuing president or a new president-elect that would be taking the office the following day. There's a reason. There's stuff there that they want to bury, that they want to put in the past, that they don't want to acknowledge. At least that's the perception, or that's what a lot of people would assume. But TikTok is trying to put a stop to that, and honestly, I can't blame them. They need to be able to get out in some form or fashion and be made whole. Whether or not that's to the detriment of the United States or not, that's just what is likely going to happen. They're going to be made whole. But according to the Deadline story here, they've gone to the last step, the last rung of the ladder. It's the Supreme Court. And they want this to basically put a halt to the ban of TikTok in the United States, or at least to the forced sale, which I think they're more worried about. Because if this gets sold to an American entity with all the access and information that's within it, it could really expose China to what they've been doing with TikTok all along. So this is a win-win or a lose-lose, depending upon what side of the line you're standing on. From the story, TikTok is asking for a temporary injunction to halt the implementation of the law, at least until the Supreme Court can review the merits of the case. In a statement, TikTok said the Supreme Court has an established record of upholding Americans' rights to free speech. Well, first and foremost, you're not an American corporation. I mean, you're incorporated for purposes of doing business in the United States, but you are a foreign-held entity that has at least 50% ownership. That is the CCP. So not exactly in the best interest of the United States. And as, well, a non-citizen, an actual flesh and blood citizen, you don't necessarily have the right to free speech in that regard. Further, the statement says, today we are asking the court to do what it has traditionally done in free speech cases, apply the most rigorous scrutiny to the speech bans, and conclude that it violates the First Amendment. Again, something I do not believe that they have claim to. TikTok argued in its petition that the lower DC Circuit Court, which has already said no in the last, several weeks, went fundamentally astray in concluding that the new law overcame the strict scrutiny standard applied to cases that implicate the First Amendment. The appellate court concluded that the government had a compelling national security interest in trying to prevent China's manipulation of content. Well, that can't be argued at all. During his first term, Donald Trump sought to force the sale of TikTok by ByteDance, citing similar concerns of China's access to data. That effort was sidelined in the courts, and Trump has since opposed the ban of the app, which has 170 million users in the U.S. today. He praised TikTok, crediting it in part for his re-election. Maybe that's true, and maybe he has. I just don't know necessarily that he wants it not to be sold to an American group of owners, or at least to be sold away from Chinese manipulation. In this particular brief, TikTok's attorneys wrote that Congress has no legitimate interest in interfering with the U.S. ownership of an expressive platform to alter its content, whether or not Congress deems some of such content foreign propaganda. This court has already made that clear, and it is likely to reaffirm the fundamental principle here. TikTok is asking the court to rule on its emergency application by January 6th. How appropriate. Its attorneys said that if the application is denied, TikTok would need time to coordinate their service providers to perform the complex task of shutting down the TikTok platform only in the United States. I'm not sure it's all that complicated. Regardless, I find it interesting that TikTok is calling this out rather loud at the moment, and I have a feeling that the court's going to deny them once more. Once again, this is a Chinese entity that has no affiliation or any standing in this country outside of its relatively tentative ties to the ability to exist in the United States. It's not something that we would consider a free speech element, since they demonstrate no adherence to free speech on the platform. And that's bringing up another problem. What do they do with this, and how do they overcome any other challenge that could be coming towards platforms that are actually based in the United States, like YouTube and Twitch and things like that? If people all of a sudden start demanding their free speech on these platforms, overcoming the Section 230 issues somehow, what would that actually lead to? And would it mean that anybody who'd been banned by saying something that was particularly spicy would have to be unbanned and compensated by the offending party? What exact rabbit hole does this go down, and is anybody interested in blocking it up permanently? Guess we're about to find out, at least by January 6th. And that takes us to the audience participation part of the video. What do you think? Do you think that this should actually fall down on the side of TikTok being banned or sold? Do you think that maybe that could have some ramifications here in the real world for video platforms that myself and you participate in on the daily? And do you think that a business is a citizen and should have the same rights? Which I still don't understand the argument for. So let me know in the comments section below. And while you're down there, take advantage of the free subscription offer and hit the subscribe button and turn it from red to gray. Turn on the notifications bell because, hey, you don't want to miss anything. And finally, as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others. And until next time, see ya.